guys, today I'm going to show you how to start the foot of your coil pot, build your first coil onto the foot, and how to design the coils that you'll actually put on your Jomon style coil pot. And I'm also going to show you how to attach those and use a stencil so you get the right silhouette that you're looking for. So if you have any additional questions, just let me know and I'll be happy to help. So I want to show you how to make a really good coil. Since we're making Jomon style coil pots, we want our coils to be really super smooth and nice looking. So what you're going to do is you're going to squeeze the clay and you're going to rotate. And I'm using like the flat part of my hand. I'm not using the fingertips. So when you squeeze, it's a gentle, even pressure. Flip your coil and do the same thing this way. Don't get in a hurry. Go slow. Just like think about pinch potting, so you're trying to make the coil the same thickness throughout the entire clay body. So squeeze, twist, squeeze, twist. So technically, if you didn't have a table, you could make a coil pot, because the only thing we're going to use the table for is to smooth the coil out. Start with the tip of your fingertips all the way to basically your wrist, okay? So tip to wrist. Start in the middle, my fingers are together. I'm gonna roll to my wrist, and as I roll, my fingers kind of spread out. So I'm gonna start in the middle, roll back, and I'm gonna work my way out to the ends. My coil's already pretty smooth, so I only need to do this maybe 1 or 2 more times and I'll be finished. So generally I tell students to make a stockpile of about 20 to 30 coils and then start the build. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to start the foot. We're going to take our coil and we're going to twist it like a cinnamon roll. Make sure it's really nice and tight. Tap. And then pull the clay into the middle and out to the edges. Tapping every once in a while. Flip over, do the same thing to the other side. Rib tool to smooth out the rest and compress the clay. Before I go any further, I want to go ahead and I want to make a stencil. So here's a drawing that I'm hoping to create, and this is the silhouette that I want. So I've drawn a rectangular box around one side of my pot. So I have a straight line, and then I continued with my rectangle. This rectangle is going to represent my piece of cardstock that you guys will receive. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw only this line that's going down the middle of my rectangle on my piece of cardstock, okay? Now I'm going to do this backwards so I can actually see it. Well, maybe not. I could probably do it this way. I'm going to find the middle of my paper here, and I'm just trying to reattempt to draw this. That's pretty good. So then I'm going to mark this with a T because this is the top. I'm going to mark this with a B because that's the bottom. And you would be surprised how many kids get that flipped over. Once you're done with that, you're going to cut this out. This is going to act as your stencil, and this will show you where to put your coils whenever you go to put your coils on the foot of your pot. Now that I have the foot, my stencils, and a few coils made, I'm ready to actually start the process of building. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and smoothen this first coil to the foot of my pot. So I'm going to score and slip this edge, and then I'm going to apply my coil, and I'll show you what you're going to do with your stencil. I'm going to place my coil on the edge, but I'm going to check with my stencil. I'm going to line up the bottom of my stencil to the bottom of the pot, just like this. And then if my coil is touching the paper, then I know it's in the right spot. If my coil is too far in, then my stencil will not touch that coil, as you can see. If the coil is too far out, then you can see the bottom of the coil, or the bottom foot will not touch the paper. There's a space. So you know you're in the right placement if the clay from bottom to where the coil ends is touching that paper. So I'm going to go ahead and place this coil. Check it with my stencil. If I need to push that coil out a little bit so it's touching the paper, then I'll go ahead and do that. Now I need to connect this coil, so I'm going to go ahead and score and slip that inside edge, just like you would treat any other attachment. I'm going to take a coil about half the size as my first one, and I'm going to place it inside that seam. Now I'm going to support my outside wall, and I'm going to pull this clay down onto the foot. You can also use your fingertip and pull, but make sure you overlap your pull marks onto the foot. Now I'm going to pull this coil down onto the foot. You can also go this way and pull it up. Either way, whichever is comfortable. Make sure you support the inside wall. I'm going to take my rib tool and I'm going to smooth down my edges. Again, make sure you support the inside wall. If the foot ended up being too thin around your edge, you can always take an additional coil and you can smooth it in up here, which is what I'm going to do because I started with a coil that was a little bit too thin. I want to talk to you about the most common types of coil patterns when it comes to Jomon style coil pots. We have the balls of clay, we've got kind of that cinnamon swirl, we've got shapes, we've got single logs cut at around the same length and width, and then we've got just solid pieces of clay that are shaped, so about 1/4 of an inch. We have our twist. You could do a braid. I didn't actually do that for the video, but you could do that. So just a few pointers. If you are going to do balls of clay, kind of have an idea if you want them all to be the same, if you want to vary the size, that sort of thing. But what you're going to want to do is make sure they're really compressed, and then take your felting knife and cut this in half. So you're going to kind of double your money, plus it's going to be easier to smooth. So I cut it right in half, and now I've got a really nice smooth edge. So you're going to do that with your balls of clay. In order to make a swirl, you're going to do it just like you did your foot. You're going to take your coil, gently start twisting to whatever size that you want, and then cut so it's right at the edge of your coil. That way it sits flat on the foot of your pot, which I will show in a little bit. The other one that's pretty popular is to do swirls going in the opposite direction. If you're going to do something like this, get this side started, then come over here and get this side started, and then try to do this at around the same pace. That way they end up the same size. However, you don't have to keep them the same size. You can make one smaller than the other. So you could have something like that. If you're going to twist clay, you can do this a couple different ways. So you've got your 2 pieces of clay, And when you twist this, you can do it either really loosely, so like that, or you can twist the clay so it's really tight. You just have to make sure that your clay is wet enough. It's hard to do vertical. I'll roll it down here in a second. So you could tighten it. So it just depends on how you kind of place the coil. So what I usually tell my students is to go ahead and set up your first row of detailed coil designs, and to get a good idea of how many you're going to need, just set it around the perimeter of the outside of your coil pot. But to make life easier, what I'm going to go ahead and do is smooth out the inside of this before I attach it. And the reason why is because if not, then we have to